And our Week 10 Rapid 5 is pretty much just as exciting as our college football show contest because a lot of these games all have implications. Number 14, Penn State at number 5, Michigan in the Big House. Number 7, Oklahoma is going to play unranked Texas Tech. But you know what? Talk about some, I don't know what the over-under on that. I think it's 200. Number 3, unranked Temple at tomorrow night at number 12, UCF. That's a Thursday night game in Orlando. And don't be surprised if, you know, we'll get more into that, but don't worry, don't overlook Temple. Unranked Stanford at unranked Washington. Now, doesn't that sound kind of odd? Unranked Stanford, unranked Washington, but guess what? This has implications in the Pac-12 North. Can't win a national championship, win a conference. Always focus on winning. But this next one is a sort of a championship in itself. Air Force is playing at Army, and we all saw Air Force beat Navy 35-7 earlier in the year. If Air Force beats Army, the Commander-in-Chief's trophy is going home to them. If not, we're going to see if Army plays Navy later in the year. But let's start us off. Number 14, Penn State at Michigan. Michigan's number 5 right now. They're just on the outside looking in. They're seeing that Christmas dinner in there, the playoff. It's looking good. They know we just got to keep winning and keep winning. Penn State, you know, did they get lucky at home against Iowa? And Iowa gives them the game. I don't know. They had those 2 losses though. But Michigan is running, and then Shea Patterson will throw it up. But more importantly, they're playing some solid defense. I don't know. Trace McSorley, just tackle him on every play, and pretty much probably going to win the game because, as you said, Coach, he's the best player on their team. Mark, talk to us about what's going down in the Big House with Penn State.
Well, if you look at Michigan defensively, they're one of the top defenses in the country right across the board. Their defensive coordinator, Don Brown's done a fabulous job. Again, he's just done it year in and year out. And if you look at this offense from Penn State, it's all Trace McSorley, and that's it. They have nothing else. So if you can stop him and slow him down, Penn State's going to have a tough time scoring against this Michigan defense. Offensively, if you look at Michigan, they haven't scored less than 38 points in the Big House, Coach. They know how to get it done at home. They can throw the ball with Shea Patterson. They can run the ball with Karen Higdon. I like Michigan in this game. I don't even think it's going to be close. I think they're going to embarrass Penn State 51-17.
Well, I like Michigan. I think the fact their defense is so outstanding. Shea Patterson's only thrown 1 interception in Big Ten play, and that's very impressive to me. So you look at their defense, you look at Shea Patterson. But the other thing, I think Michigan's offensive line is getting much, much better. Penn State was lucky to beat Iowa in certain respects. I look for Michigan to win the game 31-14.
Well, there you have it, and it's called Penn State's opportunity to play a spoiler. And I guess who else can play a spoiler? Cliff Kingsbury. What do they say? He's the best looking coach in college football. But Oklahoma, number 7, is playing Texas, and they're playing in Jerry's World in Dallas. And like I said, over-under on this one might be 100. Texas Tech, though, they've proven they're one of the few Big 12 teams that can play some defense. We know they can play offense, whereas with Oklahoma, we know they can play offense, but defense was so bad they had to get rid of one of their coaches. So now you got Ruffin McNeil. Can he make a difference against Texas Tech and Cliff Kingsbury and Alan Bowman, the freshman? If he's healthy, he can sling that thing. And Texas Tech, they better not be overlooking them. Mark.
I like Oklahoma in this game, and the reason why is not only because of Kyler Murray, the quarterback. He gets it done, completed 73% of his passes, Coach, but C.D. Lamb and Marquise Brown, outstanding, explosive wide receivers on the outside, very difficult to defend. But I think the key, as you mentioned it before, Ruffin McNeil. In the last two games defensively, they've given up a total of 34 points. And Mike Stoops' last 2 games defensively, they've given up a total of 78 points. So this defense is playing with better confidence. It doesn't matter the competition. On both sides of the ball, Oklahoma is too dominant. I think Oklahoma wins this game and crushes Texas Tech 51-31.
Well, I agree with you on that. I think Ruffin McNeil's done a tremendous job. As we mentioned, he was an excellent defensive coordinator under Coach Leach when he was at Texas Tech. And offensively, Kyle Murray is just doing a tremendous job. You look at his passer rating, it's up there 227. He's the closest to Tua at Alabama of anybody as far as pass efficiency is concerned. But I just think Texas Tech is not good enough on defense. Not sure their quarterback is going to be healthy enough to play, but I look for Oklahoma to win the game 47-21. I think Oklahoma or Michigan is going to be in the Final Four. Well,
I know who wants to be in the Final Four, and that's number 12, UCF. and they're hosting Temple Thursday night, tomorrow night in Orlando. And don't overlook. Everybody talks in the AAC here about UCF, UCF, UCF. Well, one team obviously we'll talk about later is Houston. Don't overlook them, but don't overlook this Temple team and Jeff Collins, who I said last week is bringing some Philly tough to these guys. They're number 22 in total defense in the country. But as Coach, you said last week and 2 weeks ago, UCF is with McKenzie Milton is a great team. Without him, you know what? They're only a good team. Well, you know what? He's questionable. Is he injured? His backup is a redshirt freshman, Daryl Mack. But likewise, the leading running back for Temple, Raquel Armstead, he's questionable as well. So we're going to see how this goes, because right now is it going to be Temple against a great team, Temple against a good team, and what happens in this AAC matchup, Mark?
Well, if you look at this football game, McKenzie Milton, if he plays, you said he was questionable in this game. If he plays, I really like UCF in this football game. That's the juggling act in this football game. But here's the key to this football game. Temple has played big games this year. Coming off the overtime win against Cincinnati was a huge game for them, because Cincinnati was undefeated this past week. And if you look at earlier in the season, they did defeat Maryland, a pretty good football team. But the short week traveling on the road, regardless if McKenzie Milton plays or not, I'm taking the home team in this game, Coach. I think UCF gets it done on special teams and defense, and they get it done 37-28 over Temple.
I think UCF is going to be so mad that the poll came out and they're ranked number 12. They deserve to be better. They're going to be highly motivated. If McKenzie Milton played, I would feel comfortable them playing against anybody. Let's remember, this is basically the same UCF football team that went undefeated last year and smashed Auburn in a major bowl last year. Same team. I think that you have to look at Temple. Let's see now, they lost to Villanova and they lost to Buffalo. I mean, they've lost some conference games also, but they can't run the football. Anthony LaRusso, their quarterback, performed miracles against Cincinnati, throwing the pass, 25-yard touchdown pass right as the game ended, then throwing the 20-yard touchdown pass in overtime to win. Yeah, that's great. But UCF is a very, very good football team, very good on defense. With McKenzie Milton, I look for UCF to ramble 48-14.
Well, there you have it. The AAC it's going to be live for the rest of the year, and then we have our fourth game in the Rapid 5, unranked Stanford at Washington. And this is for, can we get up there? Stanford 3-2 in conference, Washington 4-2 in conference. So this is for a little pride, and hey, can we win this conference championship? 89th meeting goes back to 1893. But here's what's interesting. It's 42-42 and 4 ties. So you know what? This is a tiebreaker, if anything. Get up in the conference and break the tie. Been a long time since they were unranked. But if you look at these two teams, KJ Costello, 17 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. The big interesting thing is Bryce Love. Bryce Love is going to be second in the Heisman last year. You know what? He's hurt all the time. It's not his fault. That happens. He's way, way down. And then saw what happened with Washington. You'll talk about this, Mark, with Jake Browning. He's their leader. Had a little trouble last week, and then Myles Gaskin is hurt sometimes. These two wounded teams are going to go at it because it means something to them, and they can still win the conference. Talk to us, Mark.
Both teams are coming off frustrating losses. If you look at Stanford, their loss to Washington State was extremely frustrated. And how about Washington's loss 12-10 to Cal? They could only put up 10 points against this Cal defense. Jake Browning completed less than 50% of his passes. Those games are on the road for them. I think they're going to be a different football team. If you look at them at home, they don't have Myles Gaskin last week. They had a tough time running the ball on the road. Now they're home. I think Jake Browning's a different quarterback at home. This team's going to play differently at home. As Coach, you said, teams are different when they play on home than they play on the road. I think Jake Browning will rebound in this football game. I think defensively, if you look at Washington, giving up 12 points, that's not an embarrassment. You're supposed to win games like that. So Washington's defense is still there, and I think Stanford's going to have a tough time scoring on them. KJ Costello has been hot, particularly last week, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, but I still think Washington will find a way to pull it out 33-26 at home.
I think that KJ Costello is having a tremendous year. He's a sophomore, and it's unfortunate that Bryce Love has not been able to be up to expectation. This is a little bit different Stanford team than what we're used to. They can't run the football this year, Mark, and they can't stop the run. Those are two things that they can always do. They can run the ball, stop the run. They played that. That's not the case. So I give them a lot of credit, and I love Coach Shaw. I think he's an outstanding person. I think he's a great football coach. However, let's look at Washington. I think that Browning has not progressed the way that everybody expected him to, and particularly in big games. He had a very, very poor performance last week, throwing the interception right near the end of the game when they had a chance to win it. But Washington's defense is very good. I'd pick Washington to win the football game for two reasons. One, they're at home, and two, they must win this game to stay alive in the race. If Stanford wins this football game, they're still dead in the race. There's no way in this world they're going to win the division, because if they end up with 2 losses, Washington State would end up with 2 losses. Washington State beat them head-to-head. So really, Stanford's 3 games behind. On the other hand, if Washington beats Stanford and then beats Oregon State, and then they play Washington State for the right to go, because Washington State has 1 loss. If they lose to Washington, that would be 2 losses. So I look for Washington to beat Stanford 34-28.
Well, they're playing for pride, playing for a chance. And if I'd have asked you gentlemen in week 1, or told you gentlemen in week 1 that the only 2 teams from the Pac-12 in the current top 25 would be number 8 Washington State and number 15 Utah, you know what? Stranger things have happened, but that's the nature of college football, and that's why we love it. And I really have to love our 5th Rapid 5 game. You know why? Because this game is about, this is a championship game in a way for Air Force, and they are headed up to Michie Stadium in Army and West Point, and Air Force right now is 3-5. Army is 6-2, and we've seen them roll. Oh, by the way, one of those 2 losses is in overtime to number 8 Oklahoma. And Kendall Hopkins Jr. in Army, they are running the ball, and they're finding ways to win. They know how to win. Air Force, not so much. But Air Force did beat Navy. And the way the Commander-in-Chief Trophy criteria works, you know, you win 2 games. Now, I don't like this because, Coach, this is the whole kiss your sister brother thing. If it ends in a tie, they all share it. Well, I don't like that. You know what? I don't think Air Force likes that either. Air Force is going to do what they can because they are playing for a trophy. And then after that, they've got 3 more games, so they're still playing for a bowl. Army has got to beat Air Force, and then they got to go beat the midshipmen if they want that trophy. 2 similar offenses. Isaiah Sanders, you know, he's throwing a little bit more than Kendall Hopkins Jr. Throw for 4 touchdowns, run for 6. Kendall Hopkins Jr. is leading a rushing attack, which is number 1, number 2, number 3 in the country every other week. It just kind of goes back and forth. So, Mark, talk to us about what's going to go on up in your home state up north in New York at West Point.
Well, let's just put it like this. Jeff Monkins did a terrific job as a head coach at Army. The last 3 years, they've been bowl eligible. They've gone to bowl. They're going to a bowl this year. He took over a 2-win football team. He's turned this program around from the bottom to the top. They believe right now in Army they're playing great football. Kelvin Hopkins Jr., the quarterback, not only throwing the ball, but running the football, getting the job done offensively. But, Coach, this is what's more important to me. Defensively, they're getting stops and getting off the field. The last 4 games, they're averaging only giving up 14.5 points a game. So they're doing it on both sides of the ball. When you can run the football and you can stop the run and you can keep the opponent under 17 points or less, you've got great opportunities to win the football game. I've got Army winning this game 20-19.
I agree with you. I think Army's a very good football team defensively. They're very good on 3rd yards, 3rd down offense and defense. But, you know, Air Force is really coming on, Mark. Not only did they beat Navy 35-7, but they threw the ball, and there wasn't anything fluky about that. I mean, that was a decisive win. In the last couple of weeks, they lost a very, very close football game to San Diego State. They had Boise State. I think they lost 48-38. The question is, can they stop Army? And it's going to be up there at West Point. I look for Army to win the football game. 27-25, I think it's going to be a very close football game. It's going to be a great contest. You want to watch it because the one thing about the academies, they're so class, and they play the game the way it should be played as far as sportsmanship and no one-upmanship and all these other things, pounding your chest. They just go play the game. It's going to be a great game to watch. It's going to be a very, very interesting game.
Well, when that game's over, they'll stand shoulder to shoulder, seeing each other's alma mater at each end of the field, and it doesn't get any better than that. Well, that is our Week 10 Rapid 5 contest, and it's going to be an exciting week because a lot of things are going to change next week depending on who wins and who loses.